So I want to talk about why PhDs have a certain smugness around them, or why professors, academics, and sometimes PhD students have a certain amount of smugness or arrogance that's around them. And it's surprising what the actual answer is. And then hopefully at the end of this, I'll give you some tips on how to deal with this when you run into it, because you're likely going to run into it if you're in the profession. So if you don't know me, I am Professor Dave Maslach. I'm an associate professor of innovation. I created this whole reciprocity project to give back as much as I possibly can. Check out the reciprocity platform. Please go log on to it. That would be amazing if you could do that. So why is it? What's going on there? So what am I talking about? So the smugness is this kind of arrogance or feeling that there's a superiority, or a feeling that there is somebody is being better than you, or that there is an unforgiving nature of what they are, that it's almost like a coldness that you see when somebody is, they might see somebody that is not doing that well, and they essentially just shut off. And there's this coldness, or it just seems that they're disinterested in any sort of emotional contact in terms of what they're doing. And it feels just not natural, right? It feels the way that I would explain it is like business-like, right? Like if you can imagine the sort of stereotypical movie version of what business people are very cold, and they are always looking out for deals and looking out to take advantage of an opportunity, and they're very, just not nice people. And you run into a lot of people like that in the academic game, in the research game, where there's just not a lot of empathy, there's not a lot of forgivingness, it's cold and it's off. And when you interact with them, you get no emotional response. And what I've learned over many years of my own experience in terms of why I feel like that once in a while is because that the game is very ambiguous. You are in this very uncertain world, and you're in this competitive game where you're competing against everybody else. And when you do that, you feel often that you have to compete and show that you're better than everybody else. You have to do displays somehow that you're just better. And so the one way that you actually show that you're better is you have this sort of air of superiority. You have in your mind that I am better than these people. So because I'm better than them, I should act like I'm actually better than them. And there is a feeling that if I let my guard down, somebody's going to take advantage of me, and they do. And so it's this collective effort where that you have to keep your guard up. And I remember thinking many years ago of, I'm just going to keep my guard up all the time. But I realized over many years, I can't. I'm not an individual that keeps my guard up like that all the time, and sort of has this sort of quote unquote professionalism that happens. That's just not who I am. And this guard is driven often very much, in my view, from a sort of shame-based idea that you are not good enough, that you are trying to show that you're better than other people, that there is some way that you can do these displays to show that you are superior to other people. So it's shame. It's deeply rooted in I am not good enough with this world. And as you develop this sort of shame and this sort of stiff upper lip, and that develops over many years of being reinforced with this sort of uncertain world that you have, that you begin to believe it strongly. And so you believe that you have to be tough to everybody else, and you have to have an air of smugness, or else somebody is going to take advantage of you because that you are not good enough. So how do you actually deal with this, right? And it's a really, really tough thing to actually deal with. In my experience, I don't deal with it. I simply just say, whoop, I'm not sure if I want to be around that person that long. And the reason is that it's hard to reverse those feelings. It's hard to reverse what is actually going on inside of them. That is deeply rooted shame feelings that have gone on for many, many years. And that requires a lot of personal growth in terms of you saying, I need to deal with this. And I know that this is a problem that's inside of me, but I need to deal with it. And ultimately, I think a lot of people are afraid to deal with that. I think ultimately that takes a great deal of personal development and work that goes on. So if you interact with people like that, it's better to realize that that's just who they are right now. And they likely, because it's deeply rooted over many years, it's likely that they're not going to change. And so what I try to do is find my group where I feel secure, I feel like I can be open and I can do my thing. And now admittedly, that group is really small. In fact, often it feels like a group of one. It feels like me. But that's okay, right? Like that's where you have to say, I'm good enough inside and I can be myself and walk my walk and forget about the rest of it. Forget about how everybody else is acting. Forget about the world that just feels so insecure with who they are that they have to have this stiff upper lip and put on this guard. And admittedly, I do that often. I very much have to do that. And the reason is I'm afraid to let my guard down in front of somebody else because they might actually take advantage of that situation. And they might. So I don't let my guard down with many people, but that's because I don't have that sort of trusting relationship that's happening right now. So I can trust myself. And so I work on trusting myself and having that confidence with me that I can quietly walk and be a good person and disregard the rest of the world. And I know that seems very difficult to do, but I often think about, various different role models and how to actually do that, where people may have been persecuted, for example, and then they just keep walking their walk. And I think about those various people like Gandhi, for example. Those are challenging things, but they walk their walk no matter who they are and who they're actually interacting with. And I think as you get practice with that, you get a quiet calmness inside that allows you to keep your inner peace as you interact with people. And this might not be, as you start developing this, it might not necessarily just be the people that are in the academic game, for example. It's the whole world acts like this, right? That they are deeply rooted in some sort of thing that they haven't processed yet. So you have to figure out, how can I walk my walk and be me and have courage inside so that I could just be myself and be who I am and walk forward regardless of what the world is actually going to be with me or do. And hopefully you can actually develop this inner peace inside where you just say, I'm good enough and I can walk forward. And yeah, there's lots of days where I feel like I have to have my guard up, but those are those moments where I have to deal with myself, and hopefully I don't hurt other people when I actually do those things. But what I'm going to do is walk forward in peaceful quietness inside and know that I am good enough. All right, take care and have a wonderful day.